Thank you for visiting my channel. Before we start, please hit the subscribe, like, and share buttons to receive notification of future presentations. Our topic for discussion is the extraterritorial application of the Philippine Penal Law, which are enumerated under Article 2 of the Revised Penal Code. From Criminal Law 1, we learned that the characteristics of criminal law are 1. General, 2. Territorial, and 3. Prospective. Today we will discuss territorial or territoriality. The characteristics of generality and prospectivity will be the subject matter of separate presentations. As a general rule, a state's criminal laws are territorial. They are applicable only within its own territory. In simple terms, a country can punish only crimes committed within its borders. This includes crimes committed on its land, in its internal waters, in its territorial sea, in its territorial airspace, and on its registered vessels and aircraft. Why is criminal law territorial? Because sovereignty is territorial. Each state has exclusive authority over people within its borders, acts done within its borders, and enforcement within its borders. This is a core principle of public international law. Therefore, a country generally cannot enforce its criminal laws outside its territory. For example, the Philippines cannot punish a theft committed in Japan, or Philippine police cannot enter Malaysia to arrest a suspect unless allowed by a treaty. And here is Article 2 of the Revised Penal Code that enumerates the instances where the Philippine penal law may be applied outside the Philippines' territorial jurisdiction. Revised Penal Code Article 2 Application of its provisions. Except as provided in the treaties and laws of preferential application, the provisions of this code shall be enforced not only within the Philippine archipelago, including its atmosphere, its interior waters, and maritime zone, but also outside of its jurisdiction against those who 1. Should commit an offense while on a Philippine ship or airship. 2. Should forge or counterfeit any coin or currency note of the Philippine Islands or obligations and securities issued by the government of the Philippine Islands. 3. Should be liable for acts connected with the introduction into these islands of the obligations and securities mentioned in the preceding number. 4. While being public officers or employees should commit an offense in the exercise of their functions, or 5. Should commit any of the crimes against national security and the laws of nations defined in Title 1 of Book 2 of this code. From Article 2 of the Revised Penal Code, we learn that the general rule is the provisions of the Revised Penal Code shall be enforced only within the Philippine archipelago, including its atmosphere, its interior waters, and maritime zone. However, there are 5 exceptions to the general rule. The first exception, where Philippine criminal law may be enforced outside of its territorial jurisdiction, is against those who should commit an offense while on a Philippine ship or airship. Why is this an exception? Because even if a crime is committed outside the physical territory of the Philippines, but the offender is aboard a Philippine registered ship or airship, then the Philippine criminal law still applies. This is based on the principle of the flag state, where a vessel or aircraft is treated like Philippine territory wherever it may be. Key points. 1. Philippine registration is required. The ship or airship must be registered under the Philippine flag or considered a Philippine public or private vessel under Philippine law. If the vessel is foreign flagged, Philippine criminal law generally does not apply. Number 2, location does not matter. The crime may occur on the high seas, in foreign waters, while docked at a foreign port, or in foreign airspace. As long as the vessel or aircraft is Philippine registered, the Philippines has jurisdiction. Number 3 applies to both crew and passengers. Anyone on board, crew members, officers, passengers, even outsiders who entered the vessel or aircraft can be held liable under Philippine criminal law if they commit an offense. Illustrations or examples. Example number 1, Philippine ship on high seas. A Philippine cargo ship from Manila to Singapore is in the middle of the ocean. A crew member stabs another crew member. The crime is punishable under Philippine criminal law because it happened on a Philippine ship. Example number 2. Philippine aircraft in Japanese airspace. A Filipino passenger steals another passenger's belongings while a Philippine Airlines flight is flying over Japan. Philippine criminal law applies because the offense happened on a Philippine airship. And example number 3, Philippine vessel docked abroad. A Philippine fishing vessel is in the port of Indonesia. A fight breaks out and someone is seriously injured, still covered by Philippine law, though Indonesia may also claim jurisdiction. Exceptions to Article 2, Paragraph 1. Warships and warplanes are not subject to Philippine jurisdiction because sovereign immunity applies to them. Crimes committed inside are under the jurisdiction of the flag state. And let us understand some basic concepts like high seas, international waters, international airspace, and others. And our main reference is the Philippine Baselines Law or RA 9522. RA 9522, also known as the Philippine Baselines Law, defines the country's archipelagic baselines in accordance with the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea or UNCLOS. It adopts the archipelagic baselines and measures as follows: territorial sea 12 nautical miles, contiguous zone 24 nautical miles, exclusive economic zone or EEZ up to 200 nautical miles, and continental shelf. It can extend beyond 200 nautical miles depending on geological features. What is high seas? The United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS, defines high seas as all parts of the sea that are not included in the exclusive economic zone, territorial sea, internal waters, or archipelagic waters of a state. This is universally accepted, including by the Philippines, which is a party to UNCLOS. Where do the high seas begin? Territorial sea is up to 12 nautical miles. A state has full sovereignty over territorial sea. Contiguous zone is up to 12 nautical miles beyond the territorial sea. Law enforcement rights only, customs, immigration, sanitation. Exclusive economic zone or EEZ up to 200 nautical miles. State has sovereign rights over natural resources but not full sovereignty. And high seas is beyond 200 nautical miles unless overlapping with another EEZ. Therefore, the high seas generally begin beyond 200 nautical miles from the baseline. Where does territorial airspace end and international airspace begin? Under international law, territorial airspace ends where territorial sovereignty ends. The universally accepted rule is territorial airspace is equal to the airspace above the state's land territory plus internal waters plus territorial sea, which is up to 12 nautical miles from the baseline. So, where does international airspace begin? International airspace begins immediately beyond the outer limit of the territorial sea, that is, past 12 nautical miles from the country's baseline, normally its coastline. There is no vertical limit defined, no agreed edge of space, but horizontally, 0 to 12 nautical miles from the baseline, territorial airspace, full sovereignty. Beyond 12 nautical miles, international airspace, freedom of overflight. Exclusive economic zone, EEZ, 12 to 200 nautical miles, does not give airspace rights. The EEZ only concerns resource rights. Airspace above it is still international. And above the continental shelf, same rule. The airspace is international even though seabed rights exist. When does an aircraft lose territoriality? An aircraft is subject to the territorial sovereignty of the state whose airspace it is flying over. Therefore, an aircraft loses the territoriality of a state the moment it exits the state's territorial airspace. So, where does territorial airspace end? Under international law, territorial airspace is equal to the airspace above the state's land plus internal waters plus territorial sea, which is 12 nautical miles from the baseline. Thus, beyond 12 nautical miles from the baseline, the airspace is no longer territorial airspace. It becomes international airspace. And at that point, the aircraft is no longer under the territorial sovereignty of the coastal state. Effect in criminal law jurisdiction relevant to RPC Article 2. Why does this matter for Philippine law? Because a Philippine aircraft in international airspace is treated as Philippine territory, so crimes committed on board fall under Philippine jurisdiction under Article 2. But if the aircraft is still in another country's territorial airspace, that foreign state has concurrent jurisdiction. Example scenarios. 1. PAL aircraft 30 kilometers or 16 nautical miles from Japan's coast, already beyond 12 nautical miles in international airspace, Philippine jurisdiction applies. Example number 2. PAL aircraft descending over Narita Airport, still inside Japan's territorial airspace, Japan has territorial jurisdiction. And example number 3, Cebu Pacific aircraft over the Pacific Ocean, no state territory. Philippine jurisdiction applies because it is a Philippine aircraft. Breakdown 1. While inside the state's territorial airspace, which means land plus 12 nautical miles sea zone, the state has complete sovereignty. Crimes, aviation rules, customs, immigration laws apply fully. Number 2, once the aircraft crosses beyond 12 nautical miles from the state's baseline, it is now in international airspace. No state exercises territorial sovereignty. The governing law becomes flag state law, the country where the aircraft is registered, and international aviation treaties, Chicago Convention, Tokyo Convention 1963. Analogy with the high seas. Just as territorial waters end at 12 nautical miles, territorial airspace ends vertically above the same limit. Beyond that, it is international airspace, similar to the high seas. Here are some jurisprudence supporting Article 2, Paragraph 1. Let's briefly discuss the archipelagic doctrine, which is relevant to our present topic. The archipelagic doctrine is a principle in international law recognizing that an archipelagic state may draw straight baselines connecting the outermost points of its outermost islands, and the waters enclosed become archipelagic waters where the state exercises sovereignty. For the Philippines, this doctrine is crucial because our country is a scattered archipelago of 7,641 islands, and without this principle, our seas would be chopped into internal, territorial, and international patches owned by nobody. The doctrine ensures that the Philippines is treated as one cohesive unit, not thousands of fragmented islands separated by international waters. Here is a visual representation of the Philippine archipelago. The red lines are the baselines enclosing the Philippine archipelago. Under RA 9522 or the Baselines Law, the baselines are the reference for computing the territorial sea, the contiguous zone, the exclusive economic zone or EEZ, and the continental shelf. Relevant jurisprudence on this matter is Magallona versus Ermita, GR number 187167, July 16, 2011. In this case, the Supreme Court upheld RA 9522, affirming that the Philippines is an archipelagic state under UNCLOS and that baselines comply with international law. The second exception, wherein Philippine criminal law shall be enforced outside of its territorial jurisdiction, is against those who should forge or counterfeit any coin or currency note of the Philippine Islands or obligations and securities issued by the government of the Philippine Islands. Even if the act of forgery or counterfeiting is done outside the Philippines, the offender will still be liable under Philippine criminal law if the item counterfeited is a Philippine coin, currency, note, bond, or government security. This is an example of the protective principle in criminal law. The Philippines protects its monetary system even beyond its borders. Why the Philippines claims jurisdiction? Because the act harms the economic stability of the country, public confidence in the Philippine currency, and government-issued securities and obligations. The offender's nationality does not matter. The location where the forgery happened does not matter. What matters is the object of the crime, Philippine money and Philippine government securities. Important notes. Actual circulation of the forged notes is not required. The moment the act of forging or counterfeiting is committed, liability attaches. The law intends to protect the integrity of Philippine currency and securities, which are essential to national interest. Examples. Example number one, forgery committed abroad. A foreign national in Thailand prints fake Philippine 1,000 peso bills. He is criminally liable under the RPC even though he is not a Filipino and the act was done outside the Philippines. Example number two, counterfeit coins. A Filipino living in Dubai manufactures fake Philippine 10 centavo coins. Philippine criminal law applies. And example number three, counterfeiting government securities. A person in Hong Kong produces fake Philippine treasury bills or bonds, still punishable under the RPC. The third exception, where Philippine criminal law shall be enforced outside of the Philippine territory, is against those who should be liable for acts connected with the introduction into these islands of the obligations and securities mentioned in the preceding number. This paragraph declares that the Philippines can punish a person even if the criminal act was done outside the Philippines as long as the act is connected with bringing into the country forged or counterfeit obligations or securities of the Philippine government. Connected provision, item number 2. Item number 2, which says preceding number, refers to forging or counterfeiting the Philippine coins, Philippine currency notes, Philippine obligations or securities, and obligations, securities issued by the Philippine government. So item number 3 addresses not the forging itself, but the act of introducing, meaning bringing in, importing, circulating, distributing these forged instruments into the Philippines. Even if the forgery was done abroad, the person who brings or attempts to bring the fake Philippine money or securities into the country can be prosecuted in the Philippines. For example, a person in Hong Kong prints counterfeit Philippine treasury bonds. He then ships them to Manila to sell them. Even though the printing happened abroad, he is criminally liable in the Philippines because he introduced the forged securities into the country. Another example, John, a foreigner, buys counterfeit Philippine currency in Singapore and brings it to Cebu to circulate. He can be arrested and prosecuted in the Philippines under Article 2, Paragraph 3, even if he never participated in the original forgery. The fourth exception, where Philippine criminal law shall be enforced outside of its territorial jurisdiction, is against those who, while being public officers or employees, should commit an offense in the exercise of their functions. If a Filipino public officer or employee commits a crime outside the Philippines while performing their official duties, they can still be prosecuted under Philippine law. What are the elements? 1. The offender must be a public officer or employee. This includes all government workers, regular, contractual, elected, appointed, civilian, or military. Number 2, the crime must be committed in the exercise of their functions. The act must be directly connected to their official duties or authority. And number 3, the crime must occur outside the Philippine territory. Purpose of the law. This prevents public officers from evading Philippine criminal liability by simply performing illegal acts while stationed abroad, like embassies, consulates, and overseas missions. It protects public service integrity, government reputation, and accountability of officers even when outside national territory. Examples. Example number one, consul commits falsification abroad. A Philippine consul assigned in Dubai issues a falsified travel document in exchange for money. Even though the act happened abroad, he is criminally liable in the Philippines. Example number two, Philippine military officer commits maltreatment during a UN peacekeeping mission. A Filipino UN peacekeeper abuses a civilian while on deployment. He may be prosecuted in the Philippines for the criminal act committed during official duty. And example number three, government auditor steals public funds during an overseas inspection. An officer assigned to audit Philippine funds used abroad steals part of the budget. Criminal liability attaches even though the act occurred outside Philippine territory. The fifth and last exception, where Philippine criminal law shall be enforced outside of its territory, is against those who should commit any of the crimes against national security and the law of nations defined in Title 1 of Book 2 of this code. What crimes are included? These are found in Title 1, Book 2 of the RPC, which covers crimes against national security and crimes against the law of nations. Crimes against national security are treason, conspiracy and proposal to commit treason, misprision of treason, and espionage. Crimes against the law of nations are inciting to war or giving motives for reprisals, violation of neutrality, correspondence with hostile country, flight to enemy's country, piracy and mutiny on the high seas, and qualified piracy. The crimes under this title can be prosecuted even if the criminal act or acts were committed outside the Philippine territorial jurisdiction. However, prosecution can proceed only if the offender is within the Philippine territory or brought to the Philippines pursuant to an extradition treaty. This is one of the instances where the revised penal code may be given extraterritorial application under Article 2, Paragraph 5 thereof. In the case of crimes against the law of nations, the offender can be prosecuted wherever he may be found because the crimes are regarded as committed against humanity in general. Almost all of these are crimes committed in times of war, except the following, which can be committed in times of peace. Espionage under Article 117, inciting to war or giving motives for reprisals under Article 118, and violation of neutrality under Article 119. If someone commits treason, espionage, piracy, or any of the above crimes anywhere in the world, the Philippine government can prosecute them even if the offender is a foreigner in international waters in another sovereign state. The Philippines may still exercise jurisdiction. This is consistent with the international law, universal jurisdiction principles, and the need to defend national security. This is relevant jurisprudence supporting exception number 5 of Article 2 RPC. Let's go back to Article 2 of the Revised Penal Code, which opens with this statement, except as provided in the treaties and laws of preferential application. In certain treaties and laws of preferential application, some persons are conditionally immune from suit even if they are inside the Philippine territorial jurisdiction. An example of a treaty of preferential application is the Visiting Forces Agreement or VFA. The Visiting Forces Agreement, or VFA, is an executive agreement between the Republic of the Philippines and the United States of America, signed in 1998 and entered into force in 1999. Its purpose is to provide a legal framework for the temporary presence of U.S. military personnel in the Philippines for joint exercises, training, humanitarian missions, and other agreed activities under the MDT. It supplements the Mutual Defense Treaty or MDT of 1951, which is the defense alliance between the two countries. In the case of Bayan versus Zamora, GR number 138570, October 10, 2000, and related cases, the Supreme Court held that VFA is constitutional. It is a treaty because the Philippine Senate concurred, satisfying the constitutional requirement. Under the Visiting Forces Agreement, as a general rule, the Philippines has primary jurisdiction over offenses committed by U.S. personnel within the Philippine territory, except offenses solely against U.S. property or security, offenses solely against the person or property of U.S. personnel, and offenses arising from official duty. However, the U.S. may request waiver. The Philippine government may waive jurisdiction upon request of the U.S., but not automatically. As to the custody of the accused, before conviction, custody of U.S. troops remains with the U.S., but the U.S. must make the accused available to Philippine authorities for investigations and legal proceedings. Why the VFA matters in criminal law. The VFA is relevant in territorial jurisdiction and extraterritoriality discussions, particularly in Article 2 of the Revised Penal Code, questions involving foreign troops committing crimes on Philippine soil, and the concept of primary versus secondary jurisdiction in military agreements. Under the VFA, a U.S. soldier who commits a crime in the Philippines is generally subject to Philippine criminal jurisdiction. However, if the act was in the performance of official duty or the victim is another U.S. serviceman, the U.S. may take primary jurisdiction. However, the Philippines may request custody in extraordinary cases subject to U.S. agreement. This provision was central in the Lance Corporal Pemberton Jennifer Lodi case. A notable case was the Daniel Smith rape case. The Philippines exercised primary jurisdiction because rape is a crime under Philippine law and did not fall under the exceptions. However, custody remained with the U.S. until conviction. Here are the cases on the constitutionality or legality of the Visiting Forces Agreement. An example of laws of preferential application is Republic Act No. 75, which took effect on October 21, 1946. RA 75 is an act to penalize acts which would impair the proper observance by the Republic and its inhabitants of the Philippines of the immunities, rights, and privileges of duly accredited foreign diplomatic and consular agents in the Philippines. This law safeguards diplomatic immunity and prevents Filipinos from disrupting Philippine compliance with international diplomatic law. RA 75 protects foreign diplomats and diplomatic missions in the Philippines by ensuring that the country respects its international obligations under customary international law and the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations or VCDR. It does this by criminalizing acts that violate diplomatic immunity, including A. Suing a foreign diplomat in Philippine courts without first securing a certification from the Department of Foreign Affairs or DFA, B. Arresting or detaining them, C. Attaching or executing on their property, and D. Committing acts that insult or endanger them. Thank you. If you find this presentation helpful, please subscribe to receive notification of future lectures.